Okay, welcome back to part 3, and let's get going and listening to Melba's story.
There was a feeling of pride and hope that, yes, this is the United States. Yes, there is a reason I salute the flag, and it's going to be okay. You know, if these guys just go with us the first time, it's going to be okay. The troops did not, however, mean the end of harassment. It meant the declaration of war.
Tell your mama, tell your pa, I'm gonna sing you about the Arkansas song.
It was the beginning of a school year like no other at Little Rock Central High.
When we got into school, they then assigned us an individual soldier to walk us from class to class. He waited outside the classroom, and every time the bell rang and classes changed, he would walk us. We'd have our own personal guide walking us to the next class.
The troops were wonderful. You know, there was some fear that they were dating the girls in high school. And I don't care what they were doing. They were wonderful. But they couldn't be with us everywhere. They couldn't be with us, for example, in the ladies' bathroom. They couldn't be with in gym. You'd be walking out to the volleyball court, and someone would break a bottle and trip you on the ball. I have scars on my right knee from that.
Of course, we couldn't have a normal school, but we had to have as close to normal as possible. And you couldn't follow every student around with a guard into the, the stories were that the male guards were going to the restrooms with the female black students, and you couldn't do things like that. And you couldn't sit with them at the cafeteria. There wouldn't be any integration if you did that. So I'm proud of what we did and what we didn't do.
Would you think you could get used to going to school with colored children?
Yes, sir, I think so. I mean, if I'm going to have to do it, I'm not going to get used to it.
Well, now, what about this? Do you think that the trouble is with the students here in the high school and in the schools of Little Rock, or is it with the parents, or is it with outsiders, or where is the trouble?
I think it's the parents. I mean, I saw, all these crowds out here and men taking that Negro and everything.
And you don't sympathize with that sort of action, though?
No, sir, I don't.
What do you think?
Well, I think it was just downright un-American. I think it was the most terrible thing that's ever been seen in America. I mean, I was guessing founding patriotic or something like that, but I always thought that all men were created equal.
And I began to change from being somebody who considered myself a moderate who, if I had my way, would have said, let's don't integrate because it's the state's right to decide, to someone who felt a real sense of compassion for these students and felt like they deserved something that I had. And I also developed a real dislike for the people that were out there that were causing the problems. It was very unsettling to me.
I never had anything to do with it until we came here. I mean, they never lived, what you'd say, close enough to us, or we just never around them, really.
Isn't that part of what makes it difficult when you live 16 or 17 years of your life and then start doing something different all of a sudden?
Well, I think, like if a Spanish or Chinese person came here, it wouldn't be hard to get along with them. It's just that the Negroes are what you might say more different to us than a Spanish Christian might be.
Now that's an interesting comment. Break up into your groups and try to understand why would a Black American be more different to those folks at the time than a Spanish or Chinese person would do. Think about how many Spanish or Chinese immigrants they might see at the time, okay? You're getting a chance to listen to some interviews with students. What do you think about what you're hearing from the students? Do you really think that the students are being honest and forthright? Do you think the guy, Craig Rains, who was in school, said he thought of himself as a moderate, but as he got along, he started to change his opinion? So take just a minute or two, think about that, and then we will get going. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to discuss that. Let us continue.
Early morning here at 1121 Cross Street in Little Rock, and a new school day is dawning.
Melba? Yes, Mother? You better hurry. You're going to be late for school.
As usual, the girl in the family is running a little late. The girl is Melba Patillo, 15 years old.
You know, I worry about silly things like keeping my saddle shoes straight. What am I going to wear today? The things that a 15-year-old girl does worry about. But also, which part of the hall to walk in that's the safest? Who's going to hit me with what? Is it going to be hot soup today? Is it going to be so greasy that it ruins the dress my grandmother made for me? I mean, how's this day going to go? And then, you know, you get out and you get to the car, and then we joke. We kind of play with each other. And your stomach would go back into its seat. But then again, we get to the head of the NAACP Daisy Bates' house, and we'd have to face press conference.
Ms. Bates, how do you feel with your work, both with the school authorities, with the city authorities, and with the military authorities, that the situation is developing now?
Very well. The military authorities have been very nice to the children, as well as the school board and the city police.
By Thanksgiving, the Little Rock Nine had become seasoned veterans, giving sophisticated statements to the press at a dinner held by Mr. and Mrs. Bates.
My name is Gloria Ray. I am thankful for having a chance to fulfill my educational desires and for being a citizen in a country where the federal government respects and protects the rights of all its people.
My name is Terrence Roberts, and I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I'd like to say that I know that communists enjoy taking advantage of situations such as these to twist the minds of peoples of the world. But I'm thankful that in America, their actions are being foiled through the efforts of many democratic-minded citizens.
I'm Minnie Jean Brown. I'm thankful for the many people who have stood by us and worked diligently in our struggle for a perfect democracy.
At school, the black teenagers were still being harassed by a few determined whites. Shortly before Christmas, Minnie Jean Brown struck back.
For a couple of weeks, there had been a number of white kids following us. A series of hassles, continuous calling us niggas, nigger, one right after the other. And Minnie Jean Brown was in the lunch line with me. And I was in front of Minnie. Minnie was behind me, and there was this white kid, fella, who was much shorter than Minnie. Minnie was about 5'10", and this fella couldn't have been more than 5'5", 5'4". And he reminded me of a small dog yelping at somebody's leg. Minnie had just picked up a chili.
I could just see her little head click. She consciously said to herself, no, Minnie Jean, if you do this, you know you won't be here. But then this was the time of the year when we all didn't want to be there.
And before I could even say, you know, Minnie, why don't you tell him to shut up? Minnie had taken this chili, dumped it on this dude's head. It was just absolute silence in the place. And then the help, all black, broke into applause. And the white kids, the other white kids there, didn't know what to do. I mean, it was the first time that anybody, I'm sure, had seen somebody black retaliate in that sense.
When Minnie Jean was kicked out of school following the chili incident, maybe 15, 20 students brought cards and gave them out that said 1 down, 8 to go. When school was out in May, they still hadn't given up the fight. They came out with a 2-color card that said, I go home, Liberation Day, May 29th, 1958, which was graduation day. They were still fighting the battle even then.
On May 29, 1958, Central High School prepared to graduate 601 white students and Ernest Green.
We still didn't know whether some outsiders might roll in from some other states and firebomb the place. So we were a little nervous about it, as was Ernest, and he stood around and joked with the students. We were all joking together there waiting to process in. And I do remember that as the students' names are called and they get up and go across the platform and receive their diploma, that I really held my breath when Ernest's name was called.
There were a lot of claps for the students. You know, they talked about who had received scholarships. who was an honor student and all that, as they called the names off. When they called my name, it was nothing, just the name. And there was this eerie silence. Nobody clapped. But I figured they didn't have to, because after I got that diploma, that was it. I had accomplished what I had come there for.
I'm so glad I'm fighting for my rights. Oh, I'm so glad I'm fighting for my rights. I'm so glad I'm fighting for my rights. Singing glory, hallelujah.
Ernest, what's it been like this year? It's been what you expected, or?
Well, from the beginning it wasn't quite what we expected, but adding all things together and putting all the sides together, I think it's turned out to be, well, I would say an interesting year. I guess that would be an understatement, but when you put all the sides together, we've had some nice times as well as some rough times, and I think all in all it's worked out rather nicely.
By the time school had ended, I had sort of settled into myself. And I could have gone on for the next 5 years. It didn't matter anymore. I was past feeling. I was into just that kind of numb pain where you say, hey, I can make it, do whatever you like, and it just doesn't matter anymore. But I came home, and by myself, I walked to the backyard, and I burned my books. I burned everything that I could burn. And I just stood there crying, looking into the fire, and wondering whether I would go back, but not wanting to go back.
Melba Patillo didn't have to face that decision. The next year, Governor Faubus closed down all Little Rock's high schools to halt integration. Faubus was so popular that year, he easily won his third term as governor. Faubus's tactic was also used in Virginia, where the governor closed down school after school.
There will be no enforced integration in Virginia. I have the highest respect for the President of the United States. The troops are sent into Virginia. They will patrol empty schoolhouses.
Ooh, so the segregationists come up with a strategy to close the schools. And you might say to yourself, how could they do that? Well, they just do it. The governor declares that schools are going to be closed, comes up with a reason, and there are no schools. Now, the question I want you guys to think about is, who's hurt in that? Okay, who gets hurt and why? What is the strategy behind this? To prevent integration, to prevent the federal government from doing it? Is it to prevent people from going to school? It's whatever you guys come up with. So take the last few minutes of class, spend the time, talk with your people in your group, discuss why they come up with the strategy, why they choose to close the schools, and why does it take so long for America to integrate its schools? Why does it take more than 20 or 30 years? If you went to the NPR website, you probably would have seen a link on there about busing and school integration in Boston. Boston is another example. You don't get any integration up north for another 10 to 15 to 20 years. And you have another repeat of Little Rock in Boston. Here's the, Boston, our nation's cradle of liberty, like Philadelphia and, Bunker Hill and all that stuff. And people who live in Boston do not want their schools to integrate. So again, there's a link on NPR that would give you some more information about that. So take the last few minutes, discuss that amongst yourselves, and I then hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.